so many ideas going on in this project, but it's just the start.
Good design is all about creating that moment of bliss.
This is really also the hospitality and the tourism of tomorrow.
This is what we want to show.
We have created something which blends into the environment, and the house itself is basically seamless.
Imagine you were able to just teletransport.
You are on your own island in the center of Amsterdam.
I think you have to go there to believe it.
Our next presentation, the Phoenix Central Park in Sydney, won the culture category. And a warm welcome to the architects Durbach Jaggers with John Wardle Architects. Over to you for your presentation.
Hi, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm Camilla Block from Durbach Jaggers.
And I'm John Wardle from John Wardle Architects. Well, I'll start. I acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation on whose ancestral land this project stands, and pay my respects to the traditional owners, past, present and emerging, of this land. This project is the vision of arts philanthropist Judith Nielsen. Her intention was to have the spaces working together, to have the visual arts interwoven with the performing arts on an incredibly tight site in urban Sydney. John Wardle Architects designed the gallery in the east wing, and Durbach Jaggers designed the performance space to the west. The project is for us an essay in the collaborative process, with the facade and courtyard designed by both architects working together iteratively, with conversation and debate, both rigorous and polite and irreverent at times. The interior probably best expresses Judith's brief to examine the beauty of space and light and the joy of use and the magic of materials. These two inner worlds then express the variance of episodic journey through a gallery and a single performance chamber. Whereas the exterior wall cants, curves and steps, employing distinctly different strategies from both practices that signify the variance of the two programs within. For us, the work of Norio Imai suggests that by wrapping with fabric, a surface can both approximate and abstract a form of the internal program and create a blurred registration of its detail. So we developed an idea of abstracting the character of a material, in this case, the dense weight of brickwork being considered as light and fabric-like, as if the weight of water formed a huge dimple. This became the genesis of an idea for the placement of two interlocking windows within a concave surface. The windows themselves combined to become markers suggesting the gallery's identity in the urban realm. So the two halves are separated by a courtyard, and it's into this space that a front gate opens inward into a garden. And the walled garden within is a setting that expands the activities of both of these halves of the building. For our part of it, the gallery spaces were created with an understanding of the nature of a private gallery for a very personal collection. So the sequence of spaces choreographs a journey from intimate roofs for the display of a single work to expansive areas for large collections. The vast void links all of the chambers and draws natural daylight deep into its interior. A staircase set between major chambers and the perimeter wall sets in train one of a series of loops, in this case taking us down to the subterranean gallery. The small control centre for the entire gallery is both sentinel and exhibit, set at ground level but floating in a void above the basement level gallery. At this very lowest level, the first in a sequence of small chambers is found, and like a camera obscura, draws light through a convex lens from the courtyard 2 levels above. Its elliptical form and convex roof surround an Ai Weiwei work. And a second staircase set within the void links the 2 top levels and extends the loop. A myriad of vantage points are then created for single works in small places set on the journey. And at this 3rd level, views through the void surrounding a suspended gallery provide the first view of the coffered ceiling at the level above. Balustrades designed to be leant against encourage the line of sight down to each of the levels below. We'd certainly no idea. Judith would never tell us what would go where. And so there's a lot of speculation, and as a consequence, a multitude of various means to hold and display items of many scales were then speculated and developed. This small gallery set on the landing of the upper staircase is space for only one work and a single person. It's one of 5 small micro galleries of this scale embedded into the thick walls that surround the major chambers. Internally, the dimpled wall sways inward to concentrate attention on this figured opening to the world beyond the gallery. Here we had an endeavour and much discussion right at the start. In fact, as our first proposition to Judith that we create fuzzy light, and this was our endeavour. So a field of skylight set across the entire upper floor provided dramatic release from the darker atmosphere of the world below. Angular and sharp 34 light coffers reflect and filter the light into a soft, fuzzy glow in the chamber beneath. You'll note here also a series of smaller chambers incised into the wall, and at this level, 2 separate voids nearly intersect to create a bridge entry to this upper level gallery. This repeated but irregular geometry creates a series of disparate moments in a format that overlays the entire ceiling level of this upper chamber.
So I'm going to present our side of the building. We worked with John Wardle's office on the materials palette, the strategy, the courtyard and the street wall, and it was a fantastic shared endeavour with John. For our part, we thought of our building in a way like the Hieronymus Bosch Garden of Earthly Delights, where the outside is quite mute and opens to an inner world of crazy within. It is a magic trick that architecture can perform, and it does this out of a desire to surprise, but also to demonstrate the transformative possibility of crossing a threshold. So we very rarely get to design a facade with 4 windows, and these are our 4 character windows, a cast of characters. Inside, Judith asked us for a new kind of space, not a theatre, not prescriptive or directional, but with many perspectives, many staging options, and many possible viewpoints, both raw and open, similar in some ways to the Elizabethan theatre in the round. So this large timber bell that we created sits within a hollow that is almost all of our envelope on our side. We looked at it as a kind of golden glowing space, similar to this beautiful painting technique's sfumato that is golden. Whereas John's spaces are many and sequential, ours is incredibly singular. We aimed for a kind of intimate grandeur. It is both immediate and quiet, singular and complex. To make this space, it was done through the reimagining of a semi-industrial material, which is cross-laminated timber, made in this complex 3D bell shape in a 3D model in Sydney, Australia, and then cut out of flat sheets in Germany and shipped to us. And it actually was assembled like a large jigsaw puzzle in under 3 weeks. It has the quality both tough and soft, rough and smooth. We imagined it as a space for contemplation and intense focus and joy. The performance space itself is embedded in a series of connected lobbies, which are dark, complex, and focused more on gathering of individuals, standing, sitting, scaled to small moments and small glimpses into the bell space. Judith's organisation always envisaged this as part of her home, but as a moment to broadcast live into the world a number of performances. And in COVID, this became an incredibly powerful technique. But this was always Judith's intention. Phoenix is a space that's allowed so many different things to happen, but it's not in any way neutral. It is something to respond to and a player in every scene. And then there's upstairs, which is a kind of heavenly space for the artist and for Judith to discuss the upcoming performances, which is made in lightness and brightness with a crazy character garden and big views of the sky and a cloud window that captures the light and colour of the sky around. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. What a lovely project. Nuno, would you like to start us off?
Oh, actually, it's very difficult to be the first one to talk about this project, no? What can I say about it? It's beautiful. It's very difficult to ask questions about the project of this level of poetry. You know, it's very difficult to even just talk about it. I think the best is just to visit it and enjoy it. Since I'm from the Netherlands, which I'm not, I'm from Portugal, but I'm now in the Netherlands. I think I'm forced to ask you questions about the brickwork. The brickwork is beautiful on the outside. It is something that it is difficult to do in Australia, because it's not like, I feel that the architecture in Australia is more light up, more wood structure. Was it difficult to apply that kind of construction in Australia? Because if there are no traditional brickwork in Australia, I don't know, I must say, but I feel that it's less traditional.
Sorry, John, you go.
Oh, it's a favourite brick manufacturer, a very small family company, third generation in regional Victoria. We worked with a ceramicist who helped us with this. The clay came from 3 quarries, and then a sort of a glazing process, and we looked at different firings and all sorts of things. So really, it was treated more like a ceramic facade than conventional masonry. It was a really laborious process of making the brick itself and then applying it to the building. And then the kind of modelling that would allow us to turn the bricks in format and twist them the way we did was something that then took a whole framework of sort of more digital processes. So very traditional and completely sort of digital as well in the setting of the system.
We actually worked with incredible bricklaying company who did the Geary building in nearby. And so actually a combination of things. We actually have an incredible brickwork industry and always have had, but it's come back into favour more recently.
Thank you. Christina.
I don't, I think it's very hard as architects to collaborate, unfortunately, and I think you've done something that's incredibly seamless and complementary, and I'm sure that you pushed each other to perform better. So I think wonderful. It's a wonderful story. I love the story of the brick looking like fabric, and it is very convincing. I'm going to ask about the performing arts part of the building, because that is a little bit what I do. It sort of seemed to me that the space is beautiful and volumetrically it makes sense. What I couldn't understand, and maybe you can clarify a little bit to me, is that everything seemed to be reflective of surfaces. So I didn't understand the acoustic principles behind it. And the other question is, you talked about flexibility, a new kind of space that could accept all sorts of performances. And maybe you can go a little bit more about that on the technical side. For example, the ceiling or the vaulted ceiling, which is absolutely beautiful, of the cut timber, didn't seem to have anything in it that allowed for this flexibility. And maybe you can tell me how you hid all of that.
I wish I could show you the thousands of hours of video that have been recorded in that space, but the acoustics is built in to the timber, and if you look at the imagery, you'll see that the timber's spread apart, and behind that sits an absorptive acoustic fabric. The acoustic in the space is actually incredibly still and soft, and has been it's a very funny science we've discovered, and we were very relieved that it worked so beautifully. There's what they call the halo, which is a circular rig which drops down from the ceiling and goes at multiple heights. It can be dropped quite low or quite high, and there's multiple fixing points for light and audiovisual equipment. There's all sorts of lift up moments for power and audio all over the room, under the bench seat, down the stepped landings, and then there's a big deck that sits in the backstage area behind. And the number of performances from, dance is almost my favorite, because it's extraordinary what they've managed to do in that space. They actually dance on top of the handrail, not very good for, occupational health and safety, but there's all incredible performances that happen in the flying balcony, in the center, around the walls. And actually, funnily enough, they've also performed in the car turning circle, the backstage stairs, the garden. So actually, even though the performance bell is the main performance space, there's been all sorts of extraordinary things that have happened in that space that have completely taken us by surprise and been incredibly delightful and inspiring.
Thank you very much.
It's
Kim.
beautifully integrated.
Thank you.
Okay, I think it's a fantastic piece of art. Actually, you made it's sort of a free art building. I can see you actually inspired each other in the collaboration. It's hard to see where the building stops and where the art starts in the building. Many of the pictures actually you showed was more like you were showing the art piece of the building, so it was hard to see where are the art pieces in the building. Well, I really like that. It's a bit like a Carlos Garber building where the building in itself is so beautiful. About the brickwork, is a concrete structure behind it, or is it the bricks that you actually built in that way, and what informed the forms that you work with?
It's a massive concrete structure. The main thing that influenced the forms was an incredible program set on a very small site. It's only 700 square meters. So it's 6 stories high. It goes as deep under the ground as it does above, or nearly as deep under the ground. And so there's massive retention systems and quite an incredible concrete structure that's set in train, a program that had to fit so tightly into a very small space. And that really was one of the guiding principles. One of the other aspects for our side of it is that the gallery was a private art gallery, and that's a different definition to either a house museum, which is not, she doesn't live there, or a public gallery. So to us, that said 2 things really as our sort of thesis really. One is the journey. It's a bit like Sir John Soane's museum, that you actually, as a choreographer, an invited journey, and Judith would take people around as a very scripted form of navigation. And the other was intimacy, and that's the idea of creating these very small spaces for a very personal work to be shared by 1 or 2 people. And so they're the defining aspects of it being a private gallery. And coming to you about the more public aspects of the performance space.
How did you come to the form? Do you clay before you came clay sculpture and then made it as a building, or how did you come to it?
Sorry, I didn't hear that question. Sorry.
Really our model making. Camilla, do you want to discuss the
sculpted in clay, or how do you to form?
No, we make physical models in balsa in-house. We have thousands of them, of the interior of the bell and also of the facade, and different testing of the windows and the relationships of things. And sometimes the models get so big you can put your head inside them. And that's the way we tested the form. But then Companion, testing it as a digital form to check the geometries, and that we did in Rhino. So yeah, it's a sort of a process where sometimes the physical model is much more informative, because you can sort of smush things and then you rationalize them, and the geometry gets rationalized with the sort of more vector-based programming.
You might need to describe smush.
Smush, it's a technical term in DBJ, yes. Which is really done with spac filler, and it's really about smoothing geometries and then painting them and sanding them and painting them and sanding them until you get the feeling that the space is held and it has a kind of still quality. I think we have noticed, we've taken a lot of people on tours through the building, and John's is like a journey through a mountain where you climb and you move and you're constantly in motion, seeing things along the way. And the performance space is like a kind of resting, clearing space, and people just seem to sink into those red chairs and just stop. And it's kind of, the combination is magical. We had so much fun.
May I ask one question to finish, which is the working relationship between the 2 practices. Did you have to do a lot of discussion online? Were you able to meet up physically? And how often did you meet?
Well, we did. I mean, this is all pre-COVID, and we actually got together a lot of work was done. I mean, in both studios, but it was like coming together in a university crit session. Together frequently share the same space, and very often with Judith, our client, she would sit there as we both present each of our parts of the whole scheme, and so she was there the whole time as we presented and shared many of the discussions that we had. It's an interesting aspect of collaboration. I mean, it really is collaboration is an ill-used term frequently, and this is a very fascinating essay. You can sort of see the bits where we've worked together, you can see the bits where we've influenced each other, and you can see the parts that are entirely our own. It's part of the equation.
I think that
Thank you very much indeed. Sorry, go ahead.
And I was just going to say that it was so refreshing to have such a frank and constructive relationship as the building was being made. It was really we learned so much from each other.
Thank you very much. Lovely note to end on. Congratulations on a wonderful project, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.